Good evening and welcome to our Lehigh Valley Tea Party General Meeting for May. Thank you for being here. We will stand. If you have a hat, kindly remove it. We will start with the prayer. Heavenly Father, on this day, National Day of Prayer, we give observance that this country was founded by people of faith that came to these lands seeking freedom of religion to practice their faith the way they want, and not to let the government rule their beliefs and their way of living. Almost 250 years later, we still have an intrusive government, and we ask you, Lord, to bless President Trump, who has restored faith into our national politics. Let him be an example. A person that almost lost his life, that he continues to fight for this country. We give thanks for all our local candidates who are now stepping up, as all elections, especially local elections, are important. We ask for all the members here this evening that they are attentive to our speakers and give us the wisdom to make appropriate decisions as we move forward in this organization. Amen. Amen. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, give me a second for the technology. In honor of Donald Trump.
The singing of our national anthem.
Okay, can you please be seated? I apologize for that. Okay, open remarks. Briefly, I want to just thank everyone for coming out this evening on a beautiful evening. Thank you so much for coming out. I want to ask everyone to keep in their prayers the many members that I've heard that are ill or their relatives are ill. America's a great country. And what do you think about Donald Trump's 100 days? Make America great again. And that's what he's trying to do. Don't be frustrated. One of the main reasons we come together as a group, when you're out there in the public, even maybe in your own family and in your own neighborhoods, you have a lot of people out there, like Michael Savage said, liberalism, I can say it, is a mental disorder. All right. So we're having success, and I'm going to thank all those who respect the following notice here. No solicitation or canvassing of literature in any form, whether you're handing it out in person or placing it at the tables without clearing it with myself or one of the board members. They'll come to me because it costs us money to put this together. So we are not here to advertise everyone's little story or anything. So please continue to respect that and thank you. All right, when the speakers are up, we ask you to give them your complete attention. Okay? Membership and treasury reports. We currently have, with your regular and associate members, 7,459 members. Our bank balance is just under $60,000. Our credit line, available funds, has been increased to $24,000. So we have a good standing with creditors. Okay? And let's see. So that was from 16,000 to, whoops, hold on, I'm looking at that here. There it is. So it was increased from $16,000 to $24,000. All right. Are there any first-time attendees? If you are a first-time attendee, could you stand up so you could be recognized? Do you have any first-time attendees? This will be the first time we've ever had no one that's new. All right. Anyone? Stand up. Yeah, come on. Who is it? In the back. Uncle Joe? Oh, no. Dave. All right. All right. So again, Mo and Tom Drury in the back where you see raffle tickets are selling the 50-50. We always do well with it. It's a cash raffle. If you could see them during the break, if you haven't purchased tickets, it helps with the tea party expenses. Also, Steve in the back, the shortest guy in the room, somewhere back there. You can see his hands taller than most people standing. He is selling 100 ticket raffle. So if you are one of the winners of the 100 ticket raffle, you get a $500 gift certificate to Relic Hunter, Lehigh Valley Sporting Clays, or AF, Boyer Hardware. They're $10 a ticket. See, how many do we have left? How many? 2. So we have 2 tickets left. That drawing will go out tonight. Okay, Second Amendment Committee has some new hat and lapel pins for sale. As you can see them on the right-hand side of the screen. They look great. See Steve. If you do not have cash money, we have what's called Lvtp chips. They are over there where Jeanette is. And you can use your credit card or ATM card, and you can get tokens, and they are acceptable as using cash. All right, that was a blank one. All right, and then again, I have the brownies, the cannolis, and the cupcakes to continue to help support our trip to West Point with the Scouts. So, as many of you know, this past month, my troop, which is out of Bethlehem, and a adjoining troop out of Bath, PA, who we have teamed up with, we attended West Point. This was a Friday morning. As you can see, our campsite is nice and neat. Does anyone see the one tent with the blue background and the white stars?
Yes.
Does anyone know what that is?
The flag.
It's a flag, that's correct. You got one right. So we took our Boy Scouts once to Philadelphia. There's a Revolutionary Museum. If you ever have a chance to go to Philadelphia, the Revolutionary Museum, they have the actual tent from George Washington there. The actual tent. And that flag signified his tent. I'm not sure if that was smart because obviously the record would say, well, that's where he is. So since that trip, I purchased that flag and I put it at my campsite. Didn't turn out well, but before we tell you why it didn't turn out well, bottom right-hand corner, you see what's there, the cadets? Yeah. All right, so one of the reasons we pull up, we were the first ones at the campsite. We don't get a guaranteed campsite. So I know that campground very well. There's one location that has electric. I bring my outlets and everything. So we pulled up, we were the first one to show up. We were a little bit late running from my hut. Our boys marching 3.5 miles. I pull up with a pickup with pasty cake, Just Born, and Keystone Snacks. And as you see in the bottom right, there are the tasty cakes. So we took pictures with all our sponsors. I send them a picture. So as we're in this camporee, you see these tasty cakes all over. The gentleman that gives me the tasty cakes has said it's only sold on the East Coast. So some of the cadets told me they never had it before. So that's networking. Now, unfortunately, Friday night, it starts raining and snowing. If you look at the picture on the top left, that is our command post. The one at the bottom would have been just like our command post. It's like a tent for putting a car in it. So I got up at 5:30. I looked outside and I'm saying, CRAP. There's about 3 inches of snow outside. I thought, you gotta be kidding me. I go into that camp, the top left, it's intact, but I already heard some of my boys did not pitch their tents right. They were wet. I was nice and dry. I'm smart. I don't even own a tent. I always find another leader. But anyway, unfortunately, I went in there and I said, we'll be making breakfast in 5 minutes. The thing collapsed on us. Oh, no. As mad as I was, I said a quick prayer and I thought, you know what? 5 minutes more, I would have had that grill lit and probably would have torched those tarps. Oh, yeah. So we made friends with the tent next to us, which where the cadets were, and they allowed us to pull in their grills. Of course, we walked them, made them breakfast. But as you see in the bottom right, ambulances, the camporee did break down. So the learning lesson is here. Most of the kids, there was they call it the parachute building. It was their triage. So there was 3,500 people there. There was at least 24 kids that were removed by ambulances. They were mostly the younger scouts who were not prepared, and the motto is be prepared. They were not prepared. And second, their mental ability to deal with the weather and the situation broke down. So eventually they did close it down early because it just became unmanageable with that amount of people. But they said we will be back next year because again, we bring them the goodies. Now, fast forward. If you see here on the left, you see the target there? That gentleman was our cadet sponsor 2 years ago. He was a graduate from Parkland. His name is Bradley. His father's, I believe, a Denison area. So he was our cadet sponsor a few years ago. I still stay in touch with him. I believe I sent Valerie his contact information. As you can see there in the middle, there they are strategizing. On the right, look, what are they dealing with? Mud and cold weather. They're on the Poland borderline, and I can't tell you everything he wrote me, but he said they're there in case Russia does something. So you can see those guys are just a few years older than my scouts. But that's the reason I take them to West Point, so these men and women can have talks with the scouts and try to strengthen their mind, their patriotism. So I wanted to share that and thank all of you that have purchased some cakes, cannolis, and plum cakes. So we put away the money every year because it costs us money to get there. That's the end of the story. Thank you again for your support. This weekend, those two troops are going to the Intrepid in New York City, so if you can keep them in prayer. They're going to stay on the ship. If you've ever been on the steel ship, I went a few years ago. Oh my God, you feel your age. Walking in the steel ship, it goes, shoots right up your body. All right. They have changed the meat raffle to what is called the Spring Flame. So what this is about is we are asking you to consider purchasing the minimum of 3 tickets for $5, or we have our special, 6 for $10, and the prizes are there. If you want to come to the party, it is Sunday. The hours are from 12 to, I think, 5, and it's fun. A lot of us come here. I know Bud comes and his wife, Emily and I come, Valerie comes. It's a fun event. If you like beer and soda, you'll get your $5 worth, and they have food. I will be the DJ. We'll play a lot of different music. But if you do plan to come, let Emily or Jackie know, because we need a head count so we know how many tables our group needs. So please consider buying a ticket in support of Fearless. Again, they charge a lot more for this room to other groups, so they give us a good discount, so we want to help them out. All right. U.S. Law Shield, they will be our featured speaker next month. So our immediate agent is no longer with us. They have a new gentleman that's working with us, and we're going to have Shaneen Allen. She was a lady that I believe went over to Benjamin Franklin Bridge from Pennsylvania with a handgun. Unfortunately, she made a mistake of when she got into New Jersey, she got pulled over, she told the police officer, man, did that change her life. So, if she would have had U.S. Law Shield, life would have been a little bit different. So, we're going to have U.S. Law Shield come to speak with you in regards to having an insurance in case you ever have any incident with your handgun, shotgun, or even potentially a fist fight of any sort. Okay? So we hope you will come for that next time. All right, next up we are going to invite Joe Bishop. He's here somewhere. Joe Bishop. And he is our county chair for Lehigh County Republican Committee. Give him a big welcome.
Thank you. I know most of you already know me too, so I love coming here. I love being the Tea Party member between Northampton County, Lehigh County, and the Tea Party. We really work great together. And we had a great year last year, but what we're seeing is again this year is people are way too relaxed, and we need everybody's help. And that's why I'm up here today, is to try to remind you guys of that, to get that message out to the local people, and they can help get involved with our voter drive, mail-in ballot drive, going to the events, flag waving, whatever it takes, to counter the left's lies and everything they're talking about out there already. So just real quick, election integrity is still a big issue. We are so short on judging elections and inspectors. The Democrats are dominating us on that. And it's not just Pennsylvania, New Jersey is the same thing. But the Pennsylvania Chase organization, they came out with a very good program for writing. So it's not too late. We can look up your precinct. We can see if there's an opening where there's nobody actually on the ballot. And if there isn't anybody, then there's a darn good chance you can get yourself on the ballot and write it. So if you're interested in doing that, please contact Northampton County. Obviously, here with Andrew can help you with that too. Or go to Lehigh County, LehighGOP.com, or call the Lehigh County office, and we'll give you the information you need from PHAs, and they'll provide you with a little slate card that you hand out with your name written on there, and you just hand that out for about an hour every poll, and that's about all it's going to take for you to get on. All right, so we definitely need people as poll workers, so that's probably the best way of doing it, and that's for both judge elections and inspectors, and it can be either the major or the minor. The only difference is, whoever gets the most votes as the inspector, one is a major, one is a minor. Okay, so next is the element testing of the election machines. Obviously, you Northampton County knows what you guys went through a couple of years ago in 23. Lehigh County, we test ours, we observe the county testing them. And obviously, to make sure they work and make sure they add up correctly, and it's just a small sampling of ballots in every one of the machines, so we know all the machines work. Does that guarantee on election day that the program is a program? I don't know. All right, but what we'll do is after the election, we do the audit. There's a 2% audit of the ballots that were counted on election day, in the primary and in the general. And now, at least in Lehigh County, we got them to do it by hand count, because you can't check a machine with another machine. That's ridiculous. So we finally got them to do the hand count. We'll make them do that again. And I already talked to my office at the county office, and they said they will do it. So, but we need 10 volunteers. If we get 10 Republicans and 10 Democrats to do it, okay? So we're always looking for people right after the election to do that. So, but the LMA testing, that's this Friday. I'm doing it along with Michael Hare, who's in Lehigh County. And then I need people for Monday and Tuesday. Joe Gaither is one of our guys. He's a Tea Party guy and Northampton, Lehigh County guy. So he's going to help on Monday. Steve as well might be helping. If you guys want to help, contact the office sometime by this weekend, and we can probably give you a couple hours to do it. We need a few more shifts to fill. So we're just talking to Joe or Steve, if you can't reach me, probably have to evening. So those are two big things that's still going on election integrity. The other one is poll breeding. I mean, there's a primary, not the general, that's what, but primary, you still have to, we need to man the polls, and whether you're working for a particular candidate, then do that. But we have statewide races that we need people to hand out literature at. And we need school board races that are very important, that this is cross-filing. We must, distinguish Republicans from Democrats, and the Democrats are on the Republican ballot. So we need people at those polls handing out that card saying these are the only Republicans. Don't vote for anybody else. So, and we have a number of school board candidates here tonight too. I think George Rivera I saw, Diane is here, right? And so. That's extremely important, and of course, like I said, help any of the candidates that are running as well. So those are the big things going on. The events that Andrew brought up, this is our Chairman's Club event. It's for the members who join, that donate to the committee, and I provide them a very good benefit. If you're not a member, you can still go, but it has a nominal cost there of $55. So Congressman Ryan McKenzie will be there Wednesday, May 28th. It's 1 week after the election. And so we'll have our candidates. We're ready for the big kickoff. And so State Senator Jared Coleman's going to be there too. So those are our two leaders of Lehigh County coming together, getting ready to push all the candidates forward for the general election. And then we have the golf tournament on June 14th. Happens to be President Trump's birthday as well, and Flag Day. So we actually hired a comedian to do the Trump impersonator to come. So you don't have to play golf to enjoy this. You can just sign up for the dinner part, which is after the golf tournament, and come in and watch the fun and have dinner and enjoy all that, the festivities. So please consider doing that. I have some sheets on the back by Steve on the table over there. And of course, I'll leave some with Joe Gaither too, or you can get me. But all you have to do is go to LehighGOV.com, and it's all on our website. To sign up, sponsorships, of course, and but golf. You don't have to golf or force them if you want to golf. You can just sign up Monday, Tuesday, and we'll build a foursome for you. But if you put together a foursome, that'd be awesome. So with that, the last thing is PBS is doing a debate for our county executives. I know. Northampton, you guys got it all nailed down with those. You don't have any contested primary for that, but we do. And so if you're in Lehigh County and you really want to, you're still not sure whether you're going with Mike Welsh or Ross McLean, please go to that debate. It's May 7th, Wednesday, so next Wednesday at 7 p.m. at the PBS headquarters at the Steel Stacks. If you need more information again, just go to LehighGOV.com, and we got it on there. So a lot going on. I might get off here. You guys know, there is no such thing as off here. But we need your support in order to let everybody else know that they need to be, busy this year. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to get the initiatives and all the things that Trump wants to get done if we can't win locally. Andrew, that's all I got.
Thank you, Joe Michaud, Chairman, Lehigh County Republican Committee. Quick note from the Northampton County Republican Committee, it was brought to my attention, we do have one of our county candidates here, Daniel Campos. Is he here? Stand up, Daniel. And he will be tomorrow and Saturday at the fairgrounds. And Ryan McKenzie is actually helping support that cause, our congressman. If you're interested, we are looking for some people to go over to those fairgrounds. And where is that, Daniel? Where is it at? Bushkill. So at the firehouse. If you're interested in helping out, we are looking for some volunteers. Come and see me. I will put you in touch with Andre Swover. He spoke to you tonight. So if you're interested in manning the tent, communicating, it's a more Republican area, so you'll be fine. If you're willing to help out, I'll get you the details. I'll put you in touch with Andres. So again, that's out of Northampton County. Next up is our friend Valerie Ferguson. I'm picking all her airtime. She has 5 minutes. 4, 3. And she's going to send some of those goodies to my friends out there, right? And I sent you another name. There's a guy out of Iraq, so I'm sending her what she always asks for, names.
Okay, yes, I will send those. They'll probably go out Monday. So good evening, everybody. I was really very disappointed this week because today is the National Day of Prayer, as Andrew previously said, and there's our media who does nothing. So those that know me know that I'm very, very passionate about America, about our veterans and our military. And those who don't know me, I send free care packages over the years to our military. Just come see me. Someone asked me today if I need something. Actually, I don't need anything, so I'm not asking for anything. But if you want to write a card, I have new cards that you can write when the speaker is, a little long-winded. I'll try to be quick. Anyway, so back to the National Day of Prayer. This morning, if you noticed, Donald Trump, our president, very nicely spoke in front of the White House and invited people from around the world, ministers, whatever, etc. And he wants to bring back religion to this great American country. But more than that, he wants to be assured that we are always one nation under God. So, I'm going to use my 5 seconds just to say a little prayer. On this National Day of Prayer, we pour out our hearts and ask for the Lord's blessings on this land and its leaders, for the people, you guys, and places, relationships and responsibilities, for our churches, for our families, for schools, educators, and administrators, for those who serve others, for businesses, for those suffering, both mentally and physically, whether we know them in our families, our friends, or not, for our military, for our media, for our first responders, firemen, medical personnel, policemen, for our government, for those who serve us daily in different occupations, and for our president. And for all of you, I say thank you and God bless America.
Hey, Valerie, stand back up there. I'm going to bring you 10 seconds of my time. Come back up. Could you tell them about, no, come on back up. Could you tell them about Memorial Day and what goes on Memorial Day? So this is something great and I want to share with you. Memorial Day used to be Decoration Day, so it's important that we celebrate Memorial Day appropriately.
Okay, so when my husband and I first started to support the troops, at the same time we were doing over our kitchen, and these people made an appointment with me to come interview me about support the troops, except I forgot, because the guys in my kitchen were walking off the job. Anyway, I didn't know, but they were Gold Star parents, and and some of you may know them. They're the Seifert family, and their beloved son is Christopher. He was the first casualty in the Iraq War in the state of Pennsylvania 22 years ago. By the way, his birthday was this week, day after Earth Day. He was 50 years old. So, make a long story short, we noticed this couple, it was their only son. They had an estranged daughter-in-law with a newborn, and the newborn really is not close with the parents. Somehow they become my husband and my parents, friends, family. So I have, through the years, Baptist Scouts, got Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, to help them in their memorial garden. And this past Friday, when we had a beautiful day at the Allentown Area Corvette Club, prepared the memorial garden. So, on Memorial Day, the Corvette Club participates, like a lot of other organizations, in the Bethlehem Parade. After the Bethlehem Parade, whoever wants to, Corvettes, friends and family, follow from Bethlehem Cemetery through the beautiful township, Williams Township, where I live, and we go to the Seifert family and another Gold Star family and do what it's all about. We plant American flags, usually given to us by Lowe's. I'm crossing my fingers. I have to wait until May 1st, which is today, to hear from them. And we put them all over their garden. But we let them talk about their sons, that they are not forgotten. And anybody that has attended this, and Andrew has not forgotten the difference. So, thank you, Andrew. And you are all welcome. You want more information? Again, it's after the Bethlehem Parade. The Corvettes go first, and it's a caravan, and it takes, like, maybe at the most, an hour and a half. It's a beautiful ride, and we pray for no rain.
Emily can tell you more about the parade. All right. Donations. So we ask for donations to cover our expenses, which include renting this room, our communication, whether it be the robocall, the text blast. It's a business we're running here, folks, and we have obligations financially to cover, so we ask you to be as generous as possible. I have some breaking news. How many of you know who Bill Bockenberg is? Bill Bockenberg sent me a text just a few minutes ago. He was just elected the NRA president this past Monday. So I want to thank Bill for his support. He's another one that stepped up a few years ago, getting involved in politics. He didn't have to be there, and he's a true patriot. Is the gentleman from Williams Township here from the Friends of the NRA? Chuck Yeoman, is he here? Just want to acknowledge there were several people who attended, Steve, Emily, myself, Paul. A bunch of us attended the Friends of NRA banquet. I believe it was a week or two ago. It was a beautiful banquet. Next year, I'm hoping more of the Tea Party people will go in support of the NRA. They do a lot of things, including many of us made calls on behalf of the NRA. Remember, they made a presentation last year, so they're in the fight too. Okay? All right. Next up, we're going to have a discussion about the Lehigh Valley Tea Party, name change and direction. So, we have our presenter, the steering committee person, and some of you might know, Tom Campione.
You give me just a minute to get this.
And I have to switch, I think, right the cable on.
Yeah.
Projecting was very slow. Either that or it's a projectionist. I'm going to do then is, oh, maybe that was it.
There we go.
Yep, you're fine.
The stage was passing through.
See if it'll pop up now. Yep, it does. Okay. Sorry. We have a very cheap switcher here.
We actually bought a better switcher than that.
I'm going to start off. If you can keep hitting it, and maybe eventually you'll switch. So, as you know, there are a lot of folks here who I do know, and a lot of people who I don't know. So, for those who I don't, I'd like to provide a little bit of background. I was on the Lvtp Party board for about 10 years. I was vice chair for 2 years. I was chairman for a couple of years. I've been Second Amendment Committee chair for 5 years, or I was. Steering Committee chair for 2 years. Immigration Committee chair for a year. And I'd say that I'm the architect and the primary driver of our professionalization and growth programs since 2013. Now, I moved back to New Jersey about 5 years ago to be with family. And I'm giving you this background only because I'm going to be hitting you with some profound statements. And if I don't give you this background, you'll be at some point turning to the person next to you and going, who the hell is this guy? Does he know what he's talking about? So, you know, that's why I needed to give you some info. I'll give you the background. Oh, okay, we're up. Vision 2030. No, it's not the results of my eye test this morning. It's a vision of the steering committee through the year 2030. And what it represents is a proposal to you guys to rebrand the Lehigh Valley Tea Party. So, we should start with, what is rebranding? Well, rebranding is an organization's deliberate effort to change its brand identity, to stay relevant, or to get relevant. Why do it? Well, to accomplish what we haven't been able, what we've been unable to accomplish in the past 15 years. And that is to make a positive and long-lasting difference in our community. As a group, we have the opportunity to do far more than simply hold monthly social meetings. And quite frankly, that's something that the board hears often from our membership. And that is, well, you know, we just get together and have meetings. What do we actually do? Well, this is our opportunity. But after you hear this proposal, it will be up to you, the voting members, to decide whether or not we take this organization to the next level. So let's start with this premise. Clearly, the three cities in the Lehigh Valley, it's Allentown, Bethlehem, Mason, and many municipalities are totally controlled by Democrats. Am I right? Yes. Okay. We know that the Democrat woke policy results in high taxes, high crime, high drug use, poor education, destruction of family values, dread clean reading hour, and more roadway potholes than we can count. Now, the question is, with these policies in place, how is it that they control most of the valley? Well, that's easy to answer. They fill the majority of the elected seats. And the elected majority sets the policy. So, This is one of those profound statements. I'd like for you to understand that there's a bunch of elected seats. You heard Joe speak about some of those elections that are coming up. There's a whole bunch of elected seats across both counties. And if the majority of those seats are filled by Democrats, guess who's going to set the policy? Democrats. So the question might be, well, why aren't Republicans filling those seats? It's a fair question. The biggest reason is that traditional Republicans, and you can interpret that as conservatives, generally want nothing to do with government. Right? We just want to be left alone. So we don't run for office, and therefore we don't participate in our own governance. That's another profound statement that I want to make. We're not participating in our own governance. The result of that is we're governed by our political enemies. So they're running for office. They're filling the seats that we don't want to fill because we don't want anything to do with government. They become the elected majority, they set the policy, and we have to live under their rule. Well, so a fair question might be, why aren't Republicans filling the seats? This is the second reason. We already talked about the first. Second reason why Republicans aren't filling those seats is the actual structure of the Republican Party. This is my opinion, my observation. County GOP, Joe is chair of Lehigh. I don't know, who is the vice chair of Lehigh? Joe, who's your vice chair? Okay, I don't think I know her, but and over in Northampton, Glenn, Geisinger is chair, and Andrew happens to be vice chair. So please don't be offended by these comments. The county GOP's job is to get Republicans elected to these seats. That's their job. However, in each county, there are well over 300 elected seats. Am I wrong, Joe? How many? 300 elected seats. When you consider committee, election day workers, constables, school boards, municipal councils, supervisors, controllers, treasurers, auditors, mayors, county council commissioners, the sheriff, the DA, common pleas judges, district judges. I mean, these are hundreds and hundreds in each county of seats to fill. Well, okay, so maybe the county GOP's job, but who exactly is the county GOP? As I mentioned, it's two people. A chair and a vice chair. That's basically it. Now, someone may have some support help, some help, but basically, and it's not just here, it's across the state and across the nation. It's really just two people. They're unpaid volunteers with full-time jobs and lives of their own. And, they're spending all this time that they're supposed to fill these seats. Further, these two people have other responsibilities that take a huge amount of time. Things like fundraising, dealing with voters, conducting meetings, writing reports, emails, answering the phone, and all that stuff. So, in my view, it's simply impossible for two part-time volunteers to do all that stuff and to find candidates and field those candidates and prepare them to win their races. So, that's where we come in. We can sit around, we can complain, we can point fingers, or we can be the solution. I guess you know which one I'm in favor of. What can be done? Well, as an issues-based organization, we can attract people from our community who are passionate about a given issue. Single-issue voters. Issues like Second Amendment, freedom of speech, parental rights in education, medical freedom, right to life, issues such as this. We can attract them to our organization, and once we have their attention, we can get them to understand that They need to run for office in their communities. The Valley Tea Party would consistently drive home the message that we're responsible for our own governance. If you look at the major cities, in particular in the inner cities, people, I mean, the major cities are all run by Democrats, and the inner cities, they're so disconnected from their own governance. That's not how our government's supposed to run. Our communities are supposed to be governing themselves, basically. So what would we do? Our part would be to find these people, track these people, convince them that they need to run for office and be a part of their own governance. We would train them how to be a candidate. We provide coaching. We provide constitution classes because it's great for all of us to know the Constitution, but it's critical for our elected officials to know the Constitution. It's 10 times more important for them than it is for us, in my opinion. But we provide constitution classes for these candidates, palm cards, yard signs, we hold events, and so on. So, basically, we would be doing what the Republican Party is intending to do, but can't. Our biggest problem, and what's really preventing us from doing that, is that this would be a major project for us. We have just a bigger problem finding leaders and people to implement such projects as the Republican Party and everybody else. Less than 40% of Lehigh Valley Tea Party jobs are filled. Here's another profound statement. I'll say that again. Less than 40% of the Lehigh Valley Tea Party jobs are filled. So if you sit around wondering, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? Andrew and I laugh all the time. Who's going to do it? That's the person? There's no shortage of ideas, folks. You know, we have no shortage. We have plenty of ideas. We don't have the people to implement them. Try running any business, 40% staff. See how any retail business, see how long it lasts. So, the answer, in my view, is to hire skilled people at a reduced rate to manage our organization and any projects that we want to launch. Do you know that Lehigh Valley Tea Party was without a chair and a vice chair for 2 years? 2 freaking years we were without a chair. Why? And a vice chair. Why? No one wanted to step forward. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of responsibility. 2 years we went with none. Andrew this past March stepped up and said, okay, I'll do it. And he was left chair by the board. But we went for 2 years with no leadership at all. Because no one wanted the job. And Andrew and I hunted. So, Andrew and I hunted. We interviewed people. We talked to a bunch of different people. Would you do it? They all said no. So, in my view, we need to hire those. We need to hire people to fill these critical roles of leadership. But to do that, we need to double our revenue to $110,000. How are we going to do that? Well, we can double our membership fees, or we can double our number of members. As the Lehigh Valley Tea Party, we've reached now market saturation. We have, you saw the number up there, 7,400 and something members. Of those, you know how many people are paid today? Under 500. Now, we'll finish the year probably close to 700 or 800. Out of 7,500, we'll finish the year at about 700 or 800 paid people. So, we got all these people sitting on the side. They know about us, but they're not joining. Why? We've reached market saturation. The Tea Party brand is the biggest problem in my view. It's 15 years old. We were founded in 2009. The brand is 15 years old. It's old. It's stale. It's never really accomplished anything of significance. It's perceived as a do-nothing group of angry old white people, and it's a movement that died a decade ago. There are just two groups that are still active in Pennsylvania. Two groups. Us and our neighbors, Birch Patriots, and they're here tonight, standing with our good friends and good neighbors have been right there with us. So they're really those two groups who are having meetings. No one else is having meetings. There's a bunch of other groups around. There are anybody email this. It's BS, to be honest with you. There are people who are leaders of these other groups who go, oh yeah, I got this group and that group. Oh yeah? What have you done? If you ever had a meeting, what are your people doing? What are your members doing? Get out. Anyway, the demographics that we know we all need are young people to be involved. We need black people involved. We need blacks involved. None of these people are going to come to the Lvtp party meeting. There have been a few that come over the years. They don't come back. Why? Well, it's not theirs. They're not a part of it. Yeah, they'll come, but they're not really an integral part. But you know what kind of meeting they would come to? Sorry, I blew it. I touched the touchpad, and it's too sensitive. Okay, there we are. They would come to a Lehigh Valley MAGA meeting. This will give you a hint of where I'm going with this. What I want to do, though, is I want to pause here for just a minute and take a 60-second break. Ask everybody to stand. Yeah, okay. Just 60 seconds. That's all we're doing. Put your hands if for all your old people, you can. Yeah, hands up straight. Mid fists. Now bring your elbows through your sides and your hands out like this. And extend the left, extend your left, and then the right. And left and right. Left and right. Not really set in stone. We could be Lehigh Valley MAGA. But I believe that MAGA must be in the name of prominently. And yes, what I'm proposing is that we completely change our identity and our mission. Become a MAGA organization. So, some people, maybe some of their own, are rather attached to the Tea Party name, but the Tea Party name is the problem. MAGA is inclusive, and voters want to vote for young, strong MAGA leaders, not old, stocky Tea Party people like me. So, in support of that, there was an NBC poll a couple of weeks ago that said 1/3 of registered Pennsylvania voters identify as MAGA. 1/3 of registered voters identify as MAGA. And now that works out to about 3 million people in the state. if we look at how that would then extrapolate to only Lehigh and Northampton, we get 144,000 registered voters as MAGA. And 71% Republicans. That includes it, by the way, 71% Republicans. Which means it's independents, maybe even some Democrats, I don't know. But other than Republican, that's the two counties. But we also draw from upper Bucks. We draw from eastern Berks. We draw from lower Carbon, and we draw from Monroe as well. So our potential market is probably much closer to 200,000 people. If we got 5%, we'd be doing great. So, the summary of this proposal is that we rebrand as MAGA. Doing so, we would double our membership and therefore our revenue. By doubling our revenue, we can afford to hire 3 people to actually get stuff done. And really, in the meantime, making clear to all of our MAGA members that serving community is everyone's civic duty. So we're going to make it clear to everybody, no, you know what? Oh yeah, big deal, you voted? Oh great, you voted. Sorry, that's not enough. It's not enough. You need to be involved in the governance of your own local community. You need to run for office. School board, municipal council, blah, blah, blah. And guess what? We're not going to leave you to hang out to dry. We're going to support you the whole way. We're going to train you. We're going to provide you with all kinds of tools to help you win. Our intention would be to get MAGA people elected for 1 or 2 terms only, and then help move the best of them out and the up and the rest out. That's all we need. Just serve for 1 or 2 terms. So we plan to use the size and strength of the MAGA movement to knock Democrats out of their elected seats, starting with the most corrupt. The goal is what I said to begin with, to make a positive and long-lasting change in a lasting difference in our community. To me, this is the way things should operate. We're just filling in a gap. When we're governed by people who are in to serve the community instead of themselves, we minimize corruption far into the future. So the basic problem that we have in this country, not only at the federal level, but down to the local dog catcher, and I apologize if there are any dog catchers in the room, but it's corruption. You know, we were talking about this at dinner. All people are corruptible, and the system that we have in place is determined to corrupt anyone and everyone who runs for office. But those are the people who have run for office for themselves, not in service of communities. Our function, and I'm not saying this is going to be easy or overnight, but our function would be to find people and get them to run, those people to run to benefit the community and not themselves. So, in my view, the opportunity is now. Momentum is with us. The world is changing. Will we begin? Will we build the new world that we want? Or will we sit back and let our ideological opponents make their world, which we must then live in? If we do this, I put together a step-by-step plan and would initially lead the effort. Ideally, 2 board members and 2 regular members at a minimum would join me. And this team of 5 then would manage the entire process of rebranding and so on. The intention to replace me as soon as possible. Important decisions along the way would be made by the current board, but the most important decisions would be made by you guys, the membership. We provide summary progress reports via email to everyone. 2 last points. We would be the first Tea Party or Patriot group in the nation to formally rebrand as MAGA. Say that again. To be the first party in the nation to formally rebrand as MAGA. The trend has been for Tea Party groups to simply dissolve. They've all gone. They're all gone except for those guys and us.
No more.
The trend has been to simply dissolve. Former members then gravitate to the national MAGA movement, but they don't really do much. I find only 6 local MAGA groups in the entire United States. None seem to really be doing anything except maybe the one in Tucson, Arizona. Maybe. Most likely we'd be the largest of those 6, which means we would probably get the speaker and financial support that we would be looking for. If we go around and say, we're not only the first, but we're the largest, we're probably going to get some pretty good speakers up here, MAGA speakers, and accomplish our goals. So, that's the proposal. It's time for questions, comments, threats. We can get 10 minutes.
So I will have 2 of my board members going around. I will just say one thing. For those of you who do not know Tom Campione, though he gave you a background, he is the one that built this Tea Party, okay? I came onto the board when there was a seat open. I was asked several times. I finally came on, and I really got to know Tom better actually after he had a stroke, with all the things he did behind the scenes that most of us didn't know. And it's incredible what he's done, and he continues to do, living 2 hours away from here, so I want to thank him. I'll say one quick quote: the fear of loss. The fear of loss is greater than the desire for gain. The fear of loss is greater than the desire for gain. All right, so we're looking for the mics valid yet? Someone, one of our 2.
We have a question over here. And one over. Yeah, go ahead.
I get the main focus about this is to be a more expanded brand. So this way, it appears as though we've outgrown our stagnation and we've evolved into something bigger and more inclusive. I hate to use that word, but that's the way it is. So anyway, the thing is that I have a problem with the name that you're suggesting, and you're saying Lehigh Valley MAGA. I think that's too small. I think if you want to make it bigger, I would say MAGA PA or MAGA East PA. So this way you can allow the other regions to go ahead and catch up.
Thank you. I tend to agree with you, but those are discussions that will happen if we decide to go forward with a base proposal. You guys are going to have to decide. If we go forward, as I mentioned on one of the slides, the name's not set in stone, and what we want are a few members to be involved in the process, and a few board members to be involved in the process. And anything major like that is going to come to the board, because we're going to stay as a group. Well, we have a choice. We can do this or we can do this. And maybe the membership says, well, start like this and ultimately go all together. I don't know. Thank you.
I have one more thing though.
Yes.
If that's the case, then the other thing that I'm a little concerned about is the fact that if you go ahead and say MAGA, you basically define the group specifically a Trump-centric view. Now the thing is that I don't have a problem with MAGA, as you can see, but the thing is that the Tea Party was a bit more open to what I consider constitutionalism. So the thing is that by saying MAGA, you may draw more people in, or you may actually confuse some folks.
The MAGA movement is at least 10 times bigger than the Tea Party. Than the Tea Party movement ever was, even in its prime. And yes, there are some people just by the name MAGA who may not want to come on board. We can't satisfy everyone. And I think that probably is it. It's a big enough market to 10 times bigger than we're dealing with right now. What we want to do is we want to grow the organization, get everybody involved, and get everybody involved in governing their own communities. Thank you. Yes.
Hi, Joe. Thank you for being here. My name is Ron Regan. I belong to the Unwanted Ron Gun Club, and I shoot out competition. Now, what don't we see here?
Young people.
We don't see anyone under 40 years old.
Exactly.
All right, we got one here. Another one. So I invited a friend of mine who's around 35 to come. So we have about 35 tables at each table. We're trying to get one person, a younger person, like this young lady here, you know, who's 22.
Did you see the video? Did you see the video? Did you see the young people?
Well, we need them here.
MAGA is, look, you know, MAGA is inclusive. Look, we need young people. We need to keep the old people here too, by the way.
Well, anyway, if each table could get one person, we have 45 new people.
No, that's not how young people come. Young people come 200 people or none. That's how young people come. And what we're saying is, bring your 200 in and take a seat and become a part of this organization.
Well, I'm going to turn the mic over to one of my good friends, John Lowry.
That's fine with me.
John,
No, I did. I did.
Is 10 over?
No, it's down to 5.
It says 20 here. Okay, we got 5 minutes.
I just want to take nearly that all the time. This is, I just wanted to know, is there any chance that we will get a copy of what you had on here, that we can see?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Video,
We're going to get to that.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, is there anything that, okay, this is probably going to be maybe 1, 2 more, that's it. This one and one back there, and then we have to go on. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I just came back from Vegas the other week wearing this hat, and I had so many people come up to me in the street. Didn't know me from anybody. No blue-haired old ladies. All young people, black people, Hispanic, all coming up to me, high fives all over the place.
If you were in a tea party, how did they do that?
It doesn't even say American.
I think there was one over here. And one more in the back, and that would be.
Hi,
Yeah,
I'm
right.
Donna. I'm an ERRN who absolutely loves research. You got me with the 1/3 of all PA registered voters.
Yes.
Love MAGA. That's a huge number, and that really got me. I think that's one of the things we really should be focused on. That's a win.
Yes, thanks.
Hi everybody, I'm Brandon. I work for Scott Pressler's Early Vote Action. And I gotta say,
Who?
Scott Pressler.
Oh yeah, where's Scott?
He's not here tonight, but I work for his organization. And having been out there and like in the streets campaigning, I've been in the city, all around young people. And one of the biggest things that hit me during the campaign was the people that cheered us on the most, that surprised me the most, was when school buses would go past our booth and the kids would cheer us on. So you're 100% right in everything you're saying, and I think it would really change the organization. It would bring so many people in. Seriously, if we rebrand this back, if you guys want young people, those videos are not just like a couple of examples. Those videos of all the people doing the dance and everything, that's for real. That's fun. Kids want to be a part of MAGA, and I think this would be a great change for the Tea Party. It would really boost membership. It would keep the core values.
Can I record that one thing where you said I was 100% right to my former wife? Sign for We have one question back here and one more, and that's definitely it.
Real quickly, is there any problem legally using the MAGA name? No?
Public
Okay.
domain.
And, two things along with that.
You said one thing.
Yeah, well, that was the first thing. You know me. You know Okay. The expense of changing it from Lehigh Valley Tea Party to a new name?
Minimal.
Okay, and lastly, this room won't hold all those people in your video. What then?
Say that again, this room, what?
This room won't hold all those people in your video.
Yes.
So what do we do
I
then?
will get on my knees and thank God.
And by the way, while I have the mic, we need a volunteer for next month
We
for the
have-
table.
Okay.
Okay.
We are sitting at 40 freaking percent. 40%. You know who does all the work here? Not all of it. 90% of the work, 95% of the work throughout the month. I'm not talking about just tonight. And he took over from me. I busted my chops for many, many years building and running this organization. And after I had my stroke, he took over. And it's not fair for him. And you know what, folks? This organization is not going to be able to sustain itself unless we do something. This guy's doing it almost for free, and I did it almost for free. And yet we're not going to maintain the status quo. That's the one thing that I can assure you is this organization going forward is either going to grow and prosper or it's going to die very soon because we don't have the people to maintain it. No, we promised one more. That's Charlie. Go ahead.
Your old curmudgeon, your idea of Make America Great Again, named for the Lehigh Valley Tea Party, is absolutely brilliant. It's brilliant. Okay, and if you don't mind, I record that. And the second thing is skilled people. We need skilled leaders that are paid to run this organization.
Absolutely.
That's what we need. We can't depend on volunteers.
I think
Or the
that's
nucleus.
okay. Thanks, Charlie.
And that's it.
Move on.
Hey, God bless you.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. We have to decide tonight how we're going to proceed. We're going to think about it. I'm going to ask for a show of hands, but I want to explain to you what we're going to do first. We could just think about it and talk about this more next month, or if we don't have time next month, the month after. We have a Zoom call sometime next week for paid members who want to talk about it in more detail before they make up their mind. Or we can just end discussion now and vote. Take 15 seconds to think about which of those three you'd be more inclined to do. While you're thinking about it, I have a question for you. If we voted to go ahead and rebrand as MAGA, would you still come to monthly meetings? Okay. And before we make that choice, what I want to say is that what this all comes down to is whether or not you guys want to keep the status quo and have monthly meetings to socialize, or do you want to do something big and beautiful to change local government as Trump is changing federal government? This is the opportunity that we have. The momentum, the situation around us. If we don't change our style of local government, what have we ever really accomplished? So, I'd like to see a show of hands. Who would like to think about it and just talk about it more next month? Okay, roughly. How about people who would like to have a Zoom call and discuss it in more detail? A few. And how many people want to, or who wants to just end discussion now and vote? That's probably the majority. Does everybody agree that that's the majority? So, well, what I would say is this. We have our bylaws say that only active members can vote, and I didn't put up a list of active members in the room tonight. Take me a minute to do that so we can take our break. But I don't know. The active, if somebody made a proposal to allow all paid members to vote, then we could do that.
We had a lot of people put their hands up. They wanted to talk about it more next month. I wasn't one of them, but there was a lot. Maybe put it off a month, but people mull on it and vote next month. Because you don't want to isolate people.
Yeah, you know.
A lot of people might not, that are here tonight and want to know, may not be here next month, and that's making it.
But, you can vote by mail. I have some ballots in my car.
Just out of curiosity, who is not a paid member here? Raise your hand. Who is not a paid member? All right, not too many.
We have a few though, and
That's why it's important to be a paid member.
so maybe why don't we take a break and allow a few of us to kind of put our heads together. But let me ask one question. How about, what if you voted basically not by email but online where, you know,
In person. That's fine.
you want to get in person? Okay.
Put on the agenda next month.
So- All right, I'm going to turn things back over to Andrew.
All right, we're going to switch back around.
Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. I will tell you as I try to switch this back over, Tom and I met early when we did not have a chairperson with a gentleman that I respect very much, a person that ran a very successful business here in Northampton County. And when Tom and I met with him, the first thing he asked is, he says, a volunteer organization. He says, they're not professional. I can't hire or fire them. He says, I'm used to working with professionals that have the skill sets to get things done. So just take that into mind. All right, I just want to bring to your attention, if I can move to the screen here. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank our coffee sponsor. If you could stand over there, Bill Rowe. He was a person that stepped forward and ran for office a few years ago, and he has a book launch there, so he has a paid coffee sponsor, and he has a book about his relationship with the Lord. If you could go over there and thank him for being a coffee sponsor, purchase a book, but he's also asking for people to go online through Amazon, and if I understand correctly, all of his proceeds go to help
People in Latin America, hungry.
to help the hungry. So he's donated all this money to help the hungry. So let's give him a round of applause. If you can support Bill, go see him. All right, we're going to take a 10-minute break. We're probably going to run a little bit longer, but we have a great speaker coming up here. He was on Bobby Gun the Walls the other day. So during your break, of course, go get your 50-50 raffle tickets, cakes, cannolis, merchandise.
In the beginning,
Make sure you get your meat raffle ticket. See it at the back here. You want to come to the party. It'll be fun. We'll do the MAGA dance this Sunday.
how could I get that?
And make sure you renew your membership. Guys, you are great.
Yeah, I wanted to take a picture of him. You know, he's the one that started the tea party. I would ask you. Yeah, I'll check with him. I told Andrew my talk's like 40 minutes. When he asked me to speak, he said, I won't.
4 meetings. So the question has been brought to my attention, what about those who are not here? Look, folks, the thing is, there's no perfect solution, but those of you who are here every month, you're the ones that still continue to keep this ball rolling. That's just my opinion, okay? All right, let's see. Okay, folks. These are the active members, the voting members in the room here tonight. I'm not going to read the names, but I'm going to scroll down the list. If you're on this list, you can vote. All right? Everybody paying attention? If you're on the list, you can vote. If you're not on the list, you can't. You're not an active member. Okay. Back up the list. If your name's on the list, you can vote. Now don't ask me, what's my name on that list? It's up to you. Figure out the names on the list. These people are able to vote. Okay. So, can I get a motion to accept the proposal that was made tonight by the Can I get a motion to accept the proposal that was made by the steering committee?
Can you read the proposal again?
It was 20-minute presentation.
What are we voting on?
On rebranding the organization.
Not tonight, or?
The vote is happening tonight, whether we're going to proceed. So the reason some people are not eligible to vote, you have to not only be a paid member, but you have to attend a few meetings within a certain time.
Two meetings, either this current quarter or the prior quarter.
So that's why some of you are not on the list. You have
Only active members can vote, according to our bylaws.
We should vote to agree upon that.
No, there's nothing to agree on.
I think there is. All three people are here.
okay, but only active according to our bylaws.
I'm not on that list, I haven't missed a meeting. There you go.
You what?
I'm not on your list. I'm not on your list, I haven't missed a meeting.
Are you a paid member?
Yes, I am.
You haven't missed a meeting? Well, if you know that you have been to at least 2 meetings, the current quarter or the prior quarter, and you're paid for this year, then go.
Right, well, that means that your list is useless.
No, it's not useless. Don't, you're really insulting. You're really insulting, sir.
Well, you know,
All right, we're going ahead.
it's deserved. It's deserved.
I'm deserving of an insult.
No, that list is deserved.
All right, so we're going to call the question, folks, okay? All right. All in favor of accepting the proposal by the steering committee, and that is to rebrand the organization, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, that's fair. But I will say the ayes have it, no? Ayes have it. Thank you. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. We'll get started on this project and we'll be back in time. Thank you, Tom. We will survive and we will move forward, folks, in a positive way. All right. Without further ado, we're going to switch over here. We're going to invite David Giordano to come on up. Let's give him a round of applause, folks. Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys have any energy left? All right. I was here about September, I think. Many of you were here. And gave a talk on what happens if Trump loses, what's your backup plan. And we talked a lot about states. And right after I gave that talk, New American Magazine of the John Birch Society, after I gave the talk on, they came out with this issue, or a reprint called Make America States Again. And I was like, I wish they had printed it like when I gave my presentation. So if you want to know more about that, that's not we're here tonight. A little commercial first. John Birch Society held their national conference last year in California. This year it's coming to this area, King of Prussia. September 13th, Saturday, September 13th. One of the speakers is Alex Newman. I don't know if you know Alex. All over the place. Glenn Beck keeps having him back on. Catherine Austin Fitz. Anybody watch Tucker Carlson this week? He was interviewing Catherine Austin Fitz. She will be a speaker. General Michael Flynn will be one of our speakers. And we have more people lined up from that. So if you're interested, you go to jbs.org/25. So. For any of you who don't know me, my name is Dave Giordano. I live in South Jersey. I've been a volunteer for the John Birch Society since 1994. Spent my career in the radio business, most of the time at B101 in Philadelphia as the Director of National Sales. But in 2020, I had a great career, but it was time to take everything that I learned, and I'm on staff as a national field director for the regional director for the John Birch Society. So, next one. I guess I got to sleep on you, right? Next one. Robert Wilson, founder of the John Birch Society. It's getting late, so I'm going to skip it. All right. So, President Trump wants to implement the John Birch Society's Reclaim the Panama Canal campaign 25 years later. This is the New American publication of the John Birch Society. It's a 1999 issue, and also our January 2000 issue. And pictured is our 1999 and 2000 issue, and I so desperately wanted to do this presentation when Trump started talking about it, started to write it, but I realized that I could, I could not do a better job than what John McManus did. Because in 2000, John McManus, the former president of the John Birch Society, gave a brilliant speech on
reclaiming the Panama Canal. Unfortunately, we lost Jack last year, about 89 years old. And I traveled to South Jersey from around 2011 to 2014 with a series of speeches with him. And one day he handed me a thumb drive, and he said, I said, what's this? He said, these are my presentations. And I said, what do you want me to do with these? And he was basically saying, I'm getting older, you can do these. So Jack, I'm going to do it, this one. Usually I don't take notes, but I did make some adjustments to his presentation. But, next slide. I got to turn around and see. So taking back the canal sounds a lot like an aggressive country. I mean, it sounds kind of crazy. I don't know about Canada. Canada's, and I'm not too big on that because that's really close to a North American Union. I know what the locals want to try to do with that. But taking back the Panama Canal kind of sounds like aggressive. But if you know the history of the canal giveaway, the United States has every reason to reclaim it. Giving it away wasn't just a mistake, it was part of a masterful plan of the New World Order. The U.S. Canal and the Canal Zone was officially handed over to the Panamanian government on December the 31st, 1999. And the canal was paid for by the people of the United States. It was built by American engineering geniuses, and it was constructed only after medical experts conquered diseases that had ravaged the area. The canal was justifiably been labeled as one of the greatest accomplishments of mankind. And some of our leaders at the time thought it was campaigning over the canal was a fine idea. And some felt the giveaway was a monumental mistake or just plain stupidity at the highest level of government. But there are others who see a much darker aspect of this betrayal of American interests. For many decades, there has been a powerful movement to cancel the sovereignty of all nations and bring us into a world government and established by the United Nations as an all-powerful world government. You must know that to understand the giveaway. In 1992, then Secretary General of the United Nations, Boutros Boutros-Ghali, stated, quote, "The time of absolute and exclusive sovereignty is past. Its theory was never matched by reality," quote, end quote. Next slide. In January 2000, his successor Kofi Annan said, "State sovereignty in its most basic sense is being redefined by the forces of globalization and international cooperation. It ought to be obvious to everyone that national sovereignty is their target, and world rule by the UN is their goal. Today, I'm here to speak about the canal and some of the history which must be considered. In 1878, a French group led by Fernando de Lesseps, the man who led the building of the Suez Canal, that connects the Mediterranean and the Red Sea, turned his attention to the 22.5-mile isthmus that what was then a portion of the nation of Colombia. After 8 years, 20,000 deaths, and the expenditure of an enormous sum of money, the French gave up. Next slide. Still, the obvious advantage of having a waterway connecting the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans to the midpoint between the two American continents spurred our own government to investigate the possibility of taking over the project. And in 1902, Congress passed the Spooner Act, authorizing the President to acquire the zone for constructing the canal. Next slide. One of the first fruits of that act saw that the U.S. purchased everything from the French had left behind for $40 million. Earlier in 1903, there was no nation known as Panama, the area in question being a province of the nation of Colombia. Next slide. Secretary of State John Hay and his counterpart in Colombia crafted the Hay-Huron Treaty, I should say. It called for a 6-mile wide, zone under joint U.S.-Colombian sovereignty and a payment of $10 million to Colombia, and annual future payments of $250,000 to that nation. Next slide. The treaty was ratified by the U.S. Senate, but it was rejected by the Colombian government. So the Hay-Huron Treaty died. And when it did, the people living in Panama District of Colombia revolted. They wanted the canal through the region because they correctly assumed this would bring prosperity and an economic boom to their region. Before the year 1903 ended, Secretary of State Hay negotiated a new treaty with the Republic of Panama Representative Philippe Jean Brunet Varela. It stated that part, quote, the Republic of Panama grants to the United States in perpetuity the use, occupation, and control of a width of 10 miles across the Isthmus of Panama. Next slide. The Hay-Varela Treaty was ratified by both nations before the end of 1903. As part of this treaty, the United States paid Panama $10 million and agreed to an annual payment of $250,000, a figure that has steadily risen into the millions. Then they paid Colombia $25 million. And as I mentioned before, the French company received $40 million. Also, we paid all private property owners within the canal zone for their holdings. The U.S. actually paid for the land 4 times. The entire monetary cost before the first American worker even arrived on the scene was $163 million, a huge sum in those days. By the time the canal was completed, the U.S. had spent over $6 billion, more than the cost of acquiring Florida, Alaska, the Louisiana Purchase, and other territories. Next slide. It took the next 11 years until 1914 to complete the canal. American ingenuity, know-how, medical expertise, and determination to triumph over disease, weather, terrain, even occasional political turmoil. A ship's journey between the Atlantic and to the Pacific had been shortened by 30 days and 8,000 miles. Next slide. So the boost to commerce greatly benefited the United States, but it also benefited all other countries throughout the world. More than 13,000 commercial vessels use the waterway every year. As for the canal's military significance to our nation, there is no question about its value. Early challenges to the U.S. territorial rights to the zone led the Supreme Court in 1907, after examining all the related documents, to rule as follows, quote, it is hypocritical to contend that the title to the United States is imperfect and its territory described does not belong to this nation, end quote. The canal zone was as much U.S. property as Hawaii, Alaska, Puerto Rico, and numerous other possessions. And U.S. rights to property had been ceded in perpetuity. But the canal's value as one of the world's most strategic waterways has never escaped the attention of America's enemies. Those who had had the United States become merely one province in a tyrannical world government have worked for many years to weaken our country and to make possible and even reasonable the merger of our nation with the rest of mankind under a supernatural authority. Taking the Panama Canal away from the United States was an early goal of the One World Force. In other words, I'm saying the loss of the U.S. ownership and control of this hugely important asset did not happen because of some mistake or some blunder, stupidity, or a loss of common sense. It was always part of a sinister plan that had been worked on for almost the entire life of the canal itself. In 1939, for instance, the Roosevelt administration pressured the Senate to ratify another treaty that would give Panama an entirely new status relative to the canal. Provisions of the 1903 treaty allowed the U.S. to acquire land and build military bases outside 10-mile wide canal zone, and those provisions were canceled. Another provision of 1903, whereby the U.S. guaranteed the independence of the Republic of China, was also terminated. Also canceled was the U.S. power to maintain public order in the nation of Panama, if its own government couldn't do so. The 1939 treaty had been signed by diplomats of both nations in 1936, but it took 3 years for resistance to it in the Senate to be broken down to the point where it is ratified by that body. Next slide. By then, in 1939, the world government promoting Council on Foreign Relations had moved into the State Department and begun dominating its domination of the foreign policy of our own nation's government. After World War II, revolutionaries in Panama, emboldened by the capitulation accomplished in 1939, generated a movement calling for full control of the canal to be shifted to Panama. Remember, the Council on Foreign Relations was started by Edward Mandel House. And he believed in world government as described by Karl Marx. And he said it in his own book, Philip Through the Administrator. Next slide. In Washington, in 1946, a State Department official had been a key figure in the formation of the United Nations during the previous year, Albert Hiss. He sent the UN a list of what he termed as America's occupied territories. He brazenly included the Panama Canal Zone in his list. Hiss had not even consulted with or advised Spielberg, our nation's Assistant Secretary of State for Latin American Affairs, who supposedly was the nation's top diplomat to all matters related to Latin America. Next slide. The outrageous inclusion of the Canal Zone by Hiss in his listing of occupied territories was immediately supported by acting Secretary of State at the time, Dean Acheson. Still Braden, a veteran of many years of diplomatic service throughout Latin America, found himself confronted by two sellout artists, one above him and one below. It's worth considering what became of these three men I mentioned. Next slide. Hiss, Acheson, and Stu Braden. Hiss was eventually exposed as a communist, and he went to prison for lying about his party membership. President Truman soon promoted Acheson as Secretary of State. And after Hiss was fully exposed as a communist agent, this Secretary of State boldly stated, quote, "I'll never turn my back on Albert Hiss," end quote. And he never did. Here was our nation's top foreign service officials supporting a convicted communist agent, both of them considered the Panama Canal to be occupied territory, not outright possession. The key to understanding what Hiss and Acheson were up to is that both were members of the little-known Council on Foreign Relations. Years later, looking back on the Hiss-Acheson performance regarding Panama, diplomat Phil Braden stated, quote, "I was infuriated by the stupidity, which I then thought it was, of putting the Panama Canal in the category of occupied territory. But I did not realize its full significance until after Hiss's other activities were exposed," end quote. In other words, it was originally believed that Hiss-Acheson categorization of the Panama Canal as occupied territory was stupidity, but he later changed his mind and no longer felt that Hiss was merely stupid after Hiss was exposed as a communist. 13 years later, Stroll joined the John Birch Society and he served as a member of the organization's National Council. Neither Hiss or Acheson were stupid men. Their actions constituted deliberate subversion of America's interest in conspiracy. The next significant move against the U.S. rights in the Canal Zone occurred when President Eisenhower gave in to demands of communist agitators in Panama, and he ordered the flying of the Panamanian flag alongside the U.S. flag in the Canal Zone. Eisenhower thumbed his nose at House Vote 382 to 12 against the very concession, and the House members let him get away with it. President Kennedy then expanded the practice by ordering the flying of the Panamanian flag in every location where the U.S. flag was flying. All this stimulated agitation in Panama against U.S. rights. Rioting in Panama during the Johnson administration then led Secretary of the Army Cyrus Vance to go to Panama and placate further the anti-Americans with more concessions that watered down U.S. rights and further emboldened the leftists. Next slide. Henry Kissinger, the most important figure in the Nixon administration, ushered in the next development. In 1973, he proposed the creation of, quote, "a termination formula," end quote, to end U.S. rights completely over the canal zone. President Nixon supported the idea. And in October 1973, Nixon went to Panama and met with Panamanian leaders. Before too long, Kissinger had stimulated a completely false contention in the minds of many, especially those in Panama, that the canal zone belonged to Panama. And yet the evidence was overwhelming that Panama was led by a group of communists and communist sympathizers. Kissinger again flew to Panama for a meeting with Panama's communist dictator Omar Torrijos. Kissinger and Torrijos meeting in 1974 produced the signing of a, quote, Principles of Agreement. It contained a U.S. pledge to turn the canal over to Panama. Torrijos had seized power in Panama in 1968, only 11 days after the legally elected government of Arnulfo Arias had taken office. Next slide. He then established a repressive dictatorship allied himself with Fidel Castro, initiated friendly relationships with the Soviet Union, outlawed all opposition. The nation of Panama was in the grip of communist tyranny, whose leaders included several individuals, including Torrijos' own brother, who were known by U.S. anti-drug officials to be shipping heroin into our country. This is the government befriended by Henry Kissinger. And at the time, Kissinger was working with Ellsworth Bunker, who was functioning as our nation's ambassador at large. The two insisted that the new treaty was needed in order to avoid violence in Panama and guarantee world peace. As for peace, world peace that is, being guaranteed by giving away the Panama Canal, peace is never achieved by capitulation to threats. In August 1974, Richard Nixon resigned from the presidency in the wake of the Watergate scandal, and Gerald Ford became president. In his very first meeting with the press after Nixon's resignation, Ford dwelled at length on the importance to our nation of Henry Kissinger remaining Secretary of State. And that's when the Kissinger betrayal didn't skip a beat. And in 1975, Kissinger's comrade Ellsworth Bunker delivered a major address to Los Angeles in which he claimed, and I quote, "Sovereignty is perhaps the main issue raised by opponents of a new treaty, but it is clear under the law we do not have sovereignty," end quote. And that's a lie. According to the U.S. Constitution, both houses of Congress must approve the disposition of any U.S. territory. If the U.S. were merely a tenant in the canal, as the Panamanian officials stated, and these high-ranking U.S. diplomats were maintaining, then only the Senate, in its treaty-ratifying prerogative, would have a voice in altering U.S. status in Panama. Now we got the right slide. With Kissinger pledged already on the table, Jimmy Carter and his entourage took control of the nation's government in 1977. For Secretary of State, Carter chose Van Smith, who had already participated in watering down America's rights during the Johnson administration. For his chief negotiators in dealing with Panama, he chose the ever-present Ellsworth Bunker and Saul Linowitz, a former registered foreign agent of the communist-led Chilean regime. At the time, Linowitz was also a board member of the New York Marine Midland Bank, the sole financial agent for the government of Panama in the United States. Because of Linowitz's past, and especially because of his relationship with Panama's New York Bank, his chances of being confirmed to the post by the Senate were mighty slim. So Jimmy Carter awarded him a temporary 6-month appointment. It didn't require Senate confirmation. Is that not evidence of conspiracy? Yet the Senate allowed Carter to get away with it, and the treaties were eventually signed. Part of the agreement called for delivering $40 million to Panama, enough for Panama to settle its debt with Saul Linowitz's Marine Midland Bank. These people take care of themselves. Just prior to Carter's election in 1976, Carter had stated during a campaign speech, and I quote, "I would never give up control of the Panama Canal," end quote. And he also said, quote, "I will never lie to you." And there we have 2 lies, one right after the other. Immediately after his inauguration, Carter announced that his top priority in the field of foreign policy would be the negotiation of a new treaty based on the Kissinger-arranged pledge in 1974. This was exactly the opposite of his campaign promise. Polls at the time showed the American people were over 80% opposed to any surrender of the canal. It's perfectly reasonable to conclude that Carter had planned to reverse that pledge all along, and that his promise during the campaign was a deliberate lie designed to gain votes. Is this not evidence of conspiracy? Next slide. By the end of 1977, the Carter-Torrijos Treaty had been hammered out, and getting it ratified by the required two-thirds majority of the Senate was the next hurdle. So on February 1st, 1978, Carter delivered a nationwide televised address that he called Fireside Chat. And it was full of outright lies. For instance, he stated, "We do not own the canal, we never had sovereignty over the zone." But in 1907, a Supreme Court ruling, I had stated earlier, as I mentioned previously, the complete opposite. Its decision was reaffirmed in 1971 and again upheld in 1972. But Jimmy Carter, the man who insisted he would never lie, claimed that, quote, "The court had repeatedly acknowledged the sovereignty of Panama," end quote. That was another incredible falsehood. Further along in his Fireside Chat, Carter claimed, quote, "We have made an annual payment to Panama for the use of their land," end quote. He even referred to this annual payment as rent, while insisting that one who pays rent does not own the property in question. But the U.S. owns the canal. The canal zone was not rented, and he knew it. Carter's speech was an incredible performance. The Carter-Torrijos Treaty, sent to the Senate in 1978, was even worse. From the U.S. perspective, that the pact had been hammered out by Kissinger a few years earlier, and the new treaty failed to contain a clear-cut right for our nation to defend the canals militarily. So to persuade senators to ratify the sellout, a second treaty, known as the Neutrality Treaty, was offered along with the pact, designed to transfer the property. Next slide. This is why any discussion of this matter makes reference to treaties, two of them, not a single one. When the time came to vote on the matter, the Neutrality Treaty came before the Senate first. And because there were still strong objections to it, Carter enlisted the help of Senator Dennis DeConcini. The Arizona senator offered a reservation to the Neutrality Treaty that plainly and simply guaranteed our nation's right to defend the canal unilaterally, to keep it open with military force if needed. The Carter knew that Panama's officials would not accept the reservation, yet he refused to tell the Senate what he knew. The Senate then approved the DeConcini reservation and added to it the U.S. version, the pact, then ratified it on March 16, 1978. And in his diary on March 15, 1978, the day before the Senate ratification, Carter wrote of his awareness that Torrijos, quote, was planning to reject the treaties outright because of the same language that DeConcini insisted upon, close quote. This information is contained in Carter's own 1982 book, Keeping Faith. In other words, Carter knew that Panama would not accept the DeConcini language, and he kept this knowledge from the Senate, who insisted, were persuaded that all would be fine with the government of Panama. Also, Carter even suggested to Torrijos that the Panamanian dictator should issue his own reservation dealing with the same matter contained in the DeConcini language. This the Panamanian promptly did, and this meant that the two documents ratified by the U.S. and Panama were not identical. As any honest expert in international law will confirm, there is no treaty because the parties to do it did not sign the same document. In Keeping Faith, his book, Carter also admitted that the DeConcini reservation was absolutely necessary in order to persuade senators to approve the ratification. What he held back his knowledge that Panama wouldn't accept it prior to the ratification of the second treaty. 1 month later, he had more opportunity to inform the Senate that Torrijos had added his own 3-paragraph reservation to the Neutrality Treaty. He was constitutionally required to pass along what he knew, but he never did. He participated in a huge fraud, an act that he later said was his greatest triumph. I call it evidence of conspiracy, and I find it most significant that Torrijos included reference to U.S. and Panamanian commitments to the United Nations in his reservation to the treaty. There are people who prefer to claim that Carter did what he did and avoided doing what he should have done because he didn't want his project to fail at the last moment. There are some Americans who will defend Carter as a peace-loving man who didn't want to see bloodshed if the treaties weren't ratified. But all these excuses for Carter overlook his dishonesty, and they overlook the connections of many key players in his long-running betrayal. Who were these key players? Let's start with Alger Hiss and Dean Acheson. Move on to Dwight Eisenhower and John Kennedy and Richard Nixon. Continue with Cyrus Vance and Henry Kissinger and Ellsworth Bunker and Saul Linowitz. All these men, every single one of them, were members of the Council on Foreign Relations. In subsequent years, both Jimmy Carter and Gerald Ford were also welcomed into the ranks of the sovereignty compromising cabal of one world. Carter didn't arrange the giveaway, he cooperated with the people who were really in charge. His administration was top to bottom CFR control with Vice President Mondale, Secretary of State Vance, Secretary of Treasury Blumenthal, Secretary of Defense Brown, and many others who held membership in David Rockefeller's group. Next slide. And Carter himself was then a member of David Rockefeller's Trilateral Commission, a new group equally desirous of plunging our nation into a world government. Next slide. Another critically important supporter of this giveaway was well-known columnist William F. Buckley Jr. His published approval of the arrangement led several senators to state that the treaties must be okay, that Buckley approved it. What they likely didn't know is that Buckley was also a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. He's also a member of Skull and Bones in the CIA. Opponents of the treaties at the time, back in the 70s, pointed to the communists running Panama. They pointed their close relationship with Fidel Castro and the possible takeover of the canal, not by Panama, but by the Soviet Union. And this was a valid concern back in 1970. Today, of course, the situation has changed, and the Soviet Union is no more, though communism in Russia is still a concern. But China moved into the Panama Canal area in a big way into the entire nation. Let me briefly outline the China's presence in Panama by quoting retired Thomas Moore, former chairman of the Chiefs of Staff. Next one. In an article appearing in August 2nd, 1999 issue of the John Birch Society's New American magazine, we see his top priority Admiral Thomas Moore. He testified numerous times before Congress about the Panama Canal and the zone in this article, and he stated the following, quote, "The Chinese penetration of Panama has been effected primarily through the entity known as Panama Port Company and the Front Corporation of Hutchison Whampoa Limited, a Chinese-controlled company owned by Hong Kong billionaire Li Ka-shing. Hutchison Whampoa is a partner with the China Ocean Shipping Company and the merchant marine arm of the People's Liberation Army of China." The Admiral further pointed out that Panama's 1997 Law Number 5 has given China power to hire pilots for the ships transiting through the canal, to control the ports at each end of the canal, to set the order of the ships to use the canal, and additional power to deny its use to some ships. By this fall, Panama has allowed China to take over former U.S. military bases in the zone. Admiral Moore summed up his deep concern as follows again in this article. He said, quote, "But my specific concern is that Beijing, operating through this company, has virtually achieved, without a single fire shot, a stronghold on the Panama Canal, something which took our country so many years and tremendous efforts to accomplish." Next slide. For just one example of what interrupted use of the canal would mean to our nation's military, consider a point made by retired Admiral Clarence A. Hill. He stated, quote, "that logistics through the canal are an extremely important consideration." How important? The Admiral stated, quote, "the carrier's aircraft would run out of fuel in 5.5 days and out of ammunition for its planes in 3.5 days. He said it ought to be obvious that a steady stream of supply ships is needed to make those aircraft carriers effective. And he noted supply ships have used the Panama Canal extensively in the past." Next slide. Another authority, Captain Kenneth Puckett, a veteran of several decades of piloting ships through the canal, pointed out the commercial importance of the waterway. Each year, he has stated, over 190 million tons of cargo pass through the canal. He worries about our ports, our railroads, our highways that could virtually be shut down by the ensuing gridlock in attempting to get that cargo across the nation on our roads and on our railroads. Next slide. But in 2009, this is an article from the New American, but George Soros declared in the Financial Times, I think you really need to bring China into the creation of a new world order. China has military plans to conquer our nation. Like all those who conspire on a world level, and that includes numerous individuals from this country, from this nation, is simply and plainly a totalitarian world government. So whatever advances that goal is what we should be looking at, and even while we remain conscious of China's rapidly growing military. President Clinton was handing over top secret technology to Chinese government while receiving funds for his re-election campaign. And as for the canal itself, President Clinton let the cat out of the bag in December of that year, in 1999, when he said, quote, the Chinese will be bending over backwards to make sure that they run it in a competent, fair, and able manner, end quote. His aides quickly informed him that he had misspoken. They went on and told the press the same thing. He really didn't mean that the Chinese would actually be running the canal. So while the W. Bush and Obama administrations did not stop the flow of immigration, the Biden administration, and I want to stress, this is not the Biden immigration policy. The Biden administration, he's a puppet, and he was implementing the United Nations migrant policy, completely opening the border with reports of young, violent youth, including Chinese, coming through the Darien Gap right in Panama. Those organizations of the United Nations include such organizations like the International Organization for Migration, the UN High Commission for Refugees, the Global Forum on Migration and Development, the Global Compact for Migration, and the Global Compact on Refugees. So to the surprise of many, including us in the John Birch Society, President Trump, who sounded extreme, is not extreme at all. President Trump recently announced that the U.S. would reclaim the canal. However, recently, next slide. However, recently, then news outlets announced that C.K. Hutchinson Holdings had brokered a deal to offload its Panama Canal holdings to a consortium headed by BlackRock. Now, C.K. Hutchinson Holdings was China's way of controlling the canal and influenced the Panamanian government. This $23 billion BlackRock deal, which has to be approved by the Panama government, is so our extensive concerns don't end here. BlackRock CEO Larry Fink is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, and he's a promoter of World Economic Forum's Great Reset. Fink used BlackRock to push DEI, ESG, Agenda 2030, Net Zero, Green New Deal, carbon capture. BlackRock is a corporate member of the Council on Foreign Relations. So what do we do about all this? One talk, take action. I heard Tom, talk about we got to do something. So what do we do? A truly Americanist government would undertake these three steps, two of which should have been done long ago. The two are first, withdrawal of diplomatic recognition from China. Remember, this part of the speech I did not change. Donald Trump said this in 2000. And boost import taxes on all goods into this nation from its slave labor industries. I love Trump's policies. The Birch Society's view is his treaty policies and taxes are great. He's just doing it unconstitutionally the wrong way, but I love that he's doing it. But next slide. The second step is, which should have been taken a long time ago, is withdraw the United States from the United Nations.
Yes.
It's time to let the world know that this nation is not going to be dragged, pushed, or led into the New World Order. And the third step, something that can be done currently and should be done, one that will begin the process toward accomplishing the other steps that I've mentioned, is to have Congress pass a House joint resolution that calls for notice to be given to Panama that the Carter-Frias treaties are null and void. They're two different documents. And that the 1903 Hay-Grena-Varela Treaty remains legally binding. Anyone familiar with the international law, especially the 1969 Vienna Convention of the Law of Treaties, knows that such a difference renders the agreement null. Also, the resolution notes that according to Jefferson's Manual of the Rules of the House of Representatives, a copy of which is present in each congressional office, treaties are legislative acts that can be rescinded only by Congress, not the President. The President has no role in it. Congress, which is something else I want to bring up, is we're all excited that Trump got in office, but we've got midterms we got to concentrate on. It's another reason to keep coming to these meetings. Therefore, it's Congress. Since Congress has not rescinded the Hay-Grena-Varela Treaty of 1903, the pact remains in effect. So what we have here is, for more information on next slide. So for more information on this, and to get petitions, you can go to the John Birch Society, jbs.org. More specifically, jbs.org/canal. That'll come up. You get all this information, you drop down petitions. There's a wealth of information there, check us out. We need to reclaim a canal petition. Let me specifically recommend that you help President Trump with this effort to obtain a petition with signatures on our table over here or download them. And ask your congressman, who is Ryan McKenzie, right?
Yeah.
Okay? Tell him to support, I didn't mention, back in 2000 when I was involved, that Helen Chenoweth from Idaho introduced the Resolution 77 to bring the canal down. We need to get that bill and sign it now. And Ryan McKenzie can do that. That's your representative. So I want to thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And
Thank you.
have a very good night.
Thank you so much for coming out, for being patient, and we'll have him back, folks. You did a great job. So thank you again, David. And he's up there. If you want to see, he has some material over there. Please see David. All right, we'll try to finish up. Final announcements. I want to thank the team, meaning over here, Jeanette, Jackie, Joe. Welcome back over here. Jim Rush, and all the way around the net, all around the room, the team members that helped make this meeting run, but most of all, each and every one of you. We ask you for a safe ride home. All right, upcoming events real quick. Okay, so we have Guys and Guns, and if you can take a picture of that, if you'd like to attend, it's very reasonable. If you have further questions, Steve is in the back. We do have a drawing coming up. Okay, if you remember, Chamonix and I think it's Greg Wheeler, they have an event coming up. So they are doctors that work with insurance. So if you don't have insurance, they have an event coming up, and it is right. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. No? Yeah. Sorry. Bear with me. All right. Anyway, there is the event that they're having. So if you want to take a picture of it, it is on May 28th. So it's worth going to see, so you have some alternate ways of dealing with your health care. And then we have our friends over here. They're still here from Berks County Patriots. Their event is Thursday, May 15th. We thank them for attending our event. We hope you attend their event. Our next meeting is Thursday, June 5th. As I told you, that will be a great meeting for you to attend. That will be U.S. Law Shield. All right, our 50-50 drawing. Tom, hopefully the mic's on and working.
It's working. Tonight we collected $480 total, so the winner will receive $240. We have Sam, who's going to draw the winning ticket. And the winner number is 869-6611. That's 869-6611.
Boy, it was worth it to say, look at that. Caesar was happy he stayed.
Who is the winner?
All right, and Steve's going to follow up real quick. He's going to draw. We're going to draw over there. Also, before you leave, a reminder, if you can fill those buckets up, second collection. If you can put some cash money in the second bucket. Here we go. The 100 ticket guns. Hold on, let's see if we can turn that up. Hillary, go ahead. Are you on, Steve? Who is it? Dan who? Dan Moat, M-O-A-T? Is that related to Paul Moat? Paul Moat, are you here? Alright, if you could bring it up here, maybe I can announce it a little bit better. Alright, folks, closing remarks. Thank you so much for your patience this evening. It was a long meeting, but an important meeting. For those of you who are questioning about your voting privileges, you have to be a paid member and you have to attend a certain amount needs to be eligible to vote. Quick closing prayer, if I can have your patience. Heavenly Father, we thank you for all those who attended this evening. We thank you for all of our members and people we are supporting, mostly on the Republican platform, that are stepping up to run for our local, our counties, and our state elections. We ask you to help them get through it and move on to victory in the fall. And we ask you to pray over all of our family members, friends that are ill or sick. Help us to have a safe trip home and bless this organization. Amen. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. God bless you all. Again, if you